Yes, it is Monday. All right, yeah, the week's off and running already. And I should mention that today is actually, amazingly enough, the 100th episode. Amazing. 100 episodes. I don't know, were you one of those people out there who didn't think the show would run 10 episodes? I don't know. I don't know if you're a naysayer or not. But there is one thing I do know for certain, and that is the Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, 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 gang. Yes, welcome back to the Daily Dope. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, as well as the Grand Poobah of the GamingGang.com. So yes, today does mark the 100th episode of the Daily Dope. And I can hear Pinky's in fine form down here in the Duct Tape Studios already, with a lot of complaining and whining and roaming around. She's now getting closer to me. She's moving closer so she could be louder. Go on, Pinky, just hop up in your bed. Yes, so the two kitties are downstairs here with me today. And of course, Smokey's sacked out. She's zonked out, snoozing. And Pinky's just roaming around, complaining. There you go. She's hopping up to her bed. Maybe she'll relax. Anyway, I have to point out that I found out that Margot Kidder passed away today. Yes, the Lois Lane. I was going to say original Lois Lane, but no, that would pretty much be the television series for Superman. I can't remember the actress who portrayed Lois Lane in that, but yes, the first Lois Lane of my lifetime, I guess I would say, from Richard Donner's Superman. Too bad to hear. She passed away at the age of 69, and she did not have an easy time in life. She certainly did not. So her and Christopher Reeves are off at the great Daily Planet in the sky. Anyway, I got a big show planned for us today. I am going to review the second edition of Block by Block, which is coming to Kickstarter beginning tomorrow from Out of Order Games. So I'm going to kind of show you how to play, give you my thoughts of the game as well. Got some news also, and I've got a giveaway that I'm going to announce in just a bit as well. Pretty good weekend. Did some gaming. Didn't do a ton of gaming, obviously, because Mother's Day was yesterday. So now my mom happens to live out in Arizona, but I was kind of helping out my sister-in-law since my brother was out of town. So that was going to make for kind of a crappy Mother's Day for her. So my nephew Cameron, my niece Madison, and I tried to do something nice for my sister-in-law Dawn for Mother's Day. So I didn't get as much gaming as I would have liked, but I did get to play a few games of Remnants from Fireside Games, so that's very cool. All right, let's get into the news, because I do have 4 news pieces, kind of quiet news day today. But I do want to point out that Portal Games has now opened pre-orders for Detective, a modern crime board game, and I've got the dope. Detective, a modern crime board game, is a fully cooperative, immersive detective experience. This is a game of wits and deduction, a full game night experience. A single game session can last up to 3 or more hours. It also is a rules light, meaning, I should say it's... Well, yeah, I guess that's how they wrote it. Anyway, it means the most powerful tool at your disposal is your team, your imagination, and your own mind. Detective, a modern crime board game, is a fully cooperative, immersive detective experience. This is a game of wits and deduction, a full game night experience. How many times are going to point that out? Didn't make any sense. In fact, looks like the press release here kind of repeats things a few times. Anyway, in this challenging, story-driven game for 1 to 5 players, you will play as a group of Antares National Investigation Agency members. You're going to tackle 5 different cases and solve them in order. each of them affecting the next. Together, they will form a campaign that will put your skills to the test. Detective is a campaign game. Boy, I tell you, Portal sometimes does the weirdest translated press releases. The 5 cases in the box are connected by one overall narrative thread. Each case is comprised of a dedicated deck of 36 cards, 1 cover card, and 35 lead cards. Once you draw a lead card, you can refer to it at any time during the campaign. Detective is not a choose-your-own adventure game. There is no final paragraph that says you won and sums up the entire story. No single card that makes everything click. All the information is scattered among many different cards. You must connect the dots to build up theories and find answers to your final questions. The game is, as mentioned before, for 1 to 5 players, ages 16 and up, and will play in upwards of 3 or more hours for each session. The MSRP is $50, and while the pre-order website is happy to process your order, I did not notice a release date. One thing there isn't a ton of mention in the press release is also the online elements of the game, because there are some aspects where you're expected to go online and check, say, like Google or Wikipedia or a variety of different websites in order to kind of glean information from these clues. But there is also an overall app as well to the game that you must utilize. As far as I understand, you must utilize the app. And that kind of bugs me with some of these games. Now, first off, I kind of get the impression that this is kind of a one and done game. So once you play through all 5 cases, that's going to be it. That there isn't going to be a ton of replayability to the game. Now, I might be wrong, but that is kind of the impression that I get. But I have to point out, sometimes when you have to have an app to play a board game, it is possible that the company no longer supports the app. Then you get an upgrade to your operating system on your phone or tablet, PC, Mac, whatever, what have you, and the app doesn't work anymore. So anyway, actually it does seem like it's a pretty cool game. I am just tossing out there are online elements that you must utilize to play Detective. I forgot to mention, there is chat available. This is a live stream. If you happen to be watching live and you want to chime in, there is chat through YouTube. It's not on screen. That's one of the ways I keep some of the oddballs at bay. But if you have a question, comment, suggestion, anything like that, chime in. You want to say hello. And of course, when I'm taking a look at block by block, if you want to find out something more or get a closer look at something, feel free to ask. Okay, moving right along. There is an expansion coming this September for the Dark Souls card game, and I've got the dope on Forgotten Paths. The myriad paths of this sprawling world are legion, each one branching out into 1,000 others. Many of these paths are peaceful, untouched by the wars that rage around them. This journey, however, will take you to far darker places. I would assume so. It is Dark Souls, the card game. I didn't think it was going to Happy Joy Land. These are the paths shattered and crumbling, which have fallen from memory in sight of the flame. These are the paths dismal and cursed, where traps and ruin lie around every corner. These are the paths chilling and treacherous, which are paced only by the monstrous tread of things best left forgotten. These are the paths you must walk. Forgotten Paths is an expansion for Dark Souls, the card game. This expansion features exciting new encounters, powerful new enemies, and all new rules for terrain and traps to ensure that every battle is a fresh challenge. 4 distinctive unique bosses and a brand new exploration board provide thrilling adventure for even the most experienced players of the core game. To aid you in conquering these trials, this expansion also includes brand new, powerful weapons and equipment, as well as providing 2 completely new characters to play, the Pyromancer and the Thief, both of which bring their own playstyle to enhance your Dark Souls experience. The core game is for 1 to 4 players, 12 and up. Of course, you do need the core game to utilize this expansion, and the game plays in around 45 to 60 minutes. Forgotten Paths expansion is scheduled for a September 21st release and will carry an MSRP of $35. I have not played the Dark Souls card game. I have not played the Dark Souls board game either. I have played Dark Souls, the console game. Man, super tough. And unfortunately, when I picked up the game, it wasn't like super new anymore. So a lot of the people who had played, because one of the aspects I thought was super cool about Dark Souls is you would see ghosts of other players online and how they met their end with various different encounters and that. But as fewer people were playing online, you got fewer like ghosts popping up. So the game became a little bit harder, but it was still very, very cool. Really dug it. All right, and so the expansion will be arriving in September. Modiphius Entertainment has 3 new source books coming out for the Fragged Empire RPG system, and I've got the dope. Today, we're really pleased to announce the release of 3 major new source book expansions for Wade Dryer's Fragged Empire universe: Fragged Kingdom, Fragged Seas, and Fragged Aeternum, plus 2 new dice sets and 2 new bundles to complete your Fragged Empire experience as part of our big Fragged Empire week. In Fragged Kingdom, the Archdruid is dead. Now is the time to reclaim a world scarred by a magical druidic war and overflowing with monsters. Much has been lost, waiting to be reclaimed by those bold enough to set foot outside of civilization's last bastion. Stronghold. I guess the name of the last bastion is called Stronghold. Not Stronghold Games, just Stronghold. It is a world where death and mystery wait around every corner, behind every tree, and in every rocky crag. Then there's Fragged Seas. Sail the sea-drowned world of toil, where dark gods roam, adventurous captains of sail and black powder-fed cannonade count themselves kings and queens of the horizon. It's a place of magic, myth, and adventure. Navigate the waters of the fairy sea, but beware the greed of fierce pirates and the machinations of once great empires, and the terrible monsters which hunt these dark waters. Then there's Fragged Aeternum. You are an immortal tethered, a powerful warrior in the eternal city of Aeternum, a place of strife and mystery, a metropolis that spans the entirety of known existence. Here the souls of the dead do not lie still, and heroic tragedies play out in brutal fashion, unacknowledged by the people the tethered are sworn to protect. The flash of black powder and the gleam of blades in the moonlight accentuate the struggle. Cool. You can score each of these supplements in hardcover from Modiphius for $47.99 each. Now, I don't know if that's a sale price or if there is a sale, because supposedly you're supposed to be able to save 30% off, but it might be 30% off in the Fragged Empire bundle, and these new source books do now count. But I do want to point out you can also pick these up in PDF for $18 a piece through our friends over at Drive-Thru RPG. And as I always mention, if you're popping over to Drive-Thru RPG, please stop by thegaminggang.com and click on one of our drive-through banners. That way, if you do make a purchase, we get a small portion of that sale. And I say it all the time, those small portions really stack up and help me out a lot. All right, for my final news piece, I've been a little friendlier to Games Workshop lately, so I've been talking about some of their new releases, and the new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar is on the horizon. And when I say it's on the horizon, it's probably closer than you think. Here's the dope. The new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar is great, building upon and refining everything that's gone before. It presents a detailed setting of war and horror and an unparalleled fantasy wargaming experience. All right, keep in mind, these are all Games Workshop's words, right? However you play, whatever army you field, and whether you're a veteran of the Realm Gate Wars or just looking to make your first steps in the Mortal Realms, you've got a lot to look forward to. Bad grammar there. All right. And you won't have to wait long. The new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar will be arriving in June. I believe it's late June. Armed with new rules, background, and miniatures, you'll be playing more exciting games and forging deeper narratives than ever before. The new edition of Warhammer Age of Sigmar features the most comprehensive look at the core rules since the first General's Handbook, and like those changes, the new ones will have an equally huge impact on the tabletop. The studio team have gone through every phase of the game looking at how we can make the game faster, cleaner, and more fun to play. They've worked with a large group of community playtesters and taken on board all the feedback from you folks out there in the wider Warhammer community. They've done a great job at creating what we think is the tightest rule set Warhammer Age of Sigmar has ever had, cementing it as the fantasy miniatures game. I wouldn't say it's the fantasy miniatures game, but it is a fantasy miniatures game. There's no word yet on the MSRP or the page count just yet for the new core rulebook, but it is going to arrive next month. And yes, I give Games Workshop a hard time, mainly because of their pricing. Their pricing and the constant new additions of different games. For an example, what are they? They're on 8th edition of Warhammer 40k. So, but I heard they've done some really good stuff with this new edition. So it's kind of like, on one hand, it's sort of like, what, another edition? And then on the other hand, it's like, wow, they did a really good job with this. So I don't know. I have no idea. One of these days, I'll have to kind of dig in to see what's going on with the new Warhammer 40k and see what's up with the Age of Sigmar. Although I got to admit, Cubicle 7 Entertainment is going to have an Age of Sigmar role-playing game because they're doing Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. They're also going to do Age of Sigmar. It's on the horizon. It's kind of far out. And it's funny, I'll probably get a look at that long before I would the miniatures game. So, kind of funny. Alrighty. So, anyway, that is the news for today. Like I said, not a big, huge news day. But that's okay, because that's going to leave us more time to be looking at Block by Block from Out of Order Games, the second edition of Block by Block. So I do want to point out what's going on the rest of the week on the Daily Dope. So on Friday, I got a package in the mail from Wizards of the Coast. So yes, I have Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Now this is the edition that's coming out on May 29th. The fine folks over at 360 PR, who do the PR for Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons, also sent me the limited edition, which will be arriving in stores on the 19th. Is it? Maybe it's the 18th. Might be the 18th. It's either the 18th. Yeah, I think it's the 18th because the standard edition hits stores on the 29th. So I have reached out to make sure that there is no embargo as far as looking into Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. And we'll take a look at the standard edition, because really, the limited edition just has a different cover. That's the only difference between the books. So I have reached out to 360 PR to make sure there is no embargo as far as taking a look into the book. I honestly don't think there is at the moment. So on tomorrow's show, as long as things don't change, and I hear something like, no, don't do anything until, the 18th, I'm going to look at, we're going to dive into Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, and we are going to page through this, and we're going to take a look, because I know loads of people are out there pumped up about the latest release for 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. And of course, I have 2 copies of the book. I certainly don't need 2 copies of the book now, do I? So of course, as I mentioned, that means there's going to be a giveaway And I think it's going to be for YouTube subscribers. But there's going to be a catch. Got to hit over 1,000. I think I'm going to do 1,010 YouTube subscribers. And I will give away the limited edition Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I will give that away, and I will even include the sheet of D&D stickers that came with it. And the funny thing is, I understand a lot of people really dig these stickers, and I think these stickers are kind of like promos. I do not think when you buy the book, now I wouldn't know off the top of my head, I do not know, but I don't think if you go to your friendly local game store and purchase the D&D books when they come out that you get the stickers. I don't know. I have no idea, but I will include those in the giveaway. I will have more about the giveaway once we actually take a look at the game, or at the book, I should say. And like I said, I'm pretty sure it should be all right for me to do that on tomorrow's show. Then on Wednesday, I am going to dive into Renegade, the cyberpunkish card game from Victory Point Games. Then on Thursday, of course, Thursdays are RPGs. I'm finally going to do the review for the Dark Eye core book. Yes, finally. And then on Friday's show, I'm going to review Remnants. Oh yeah, from Fireside Games. So got some good first looks going on this week. I got some reviews going on this week. So pretty cool. Got a lot of stuff cooking. Now I do want to point out, I was going to launch the Kickstarter to try to keep the gaming gang around, because some folks watching don't realize that I did have a heart attack on March 15th, near fatal, and the bills are just stacking up. So I honestly I cannot see being able to pay for the operation of the gaming gang and thus the show without doing some sort of a Kickstarter. But I think I'm going to push that back to June 1st, because as a big blob of cat hair goes floating past me, I'm going to push that back to June 1st, because there's still some companies that haven't decided exactly how they want to partake in the crowdfunding. I said Kickstarter. I don't think it's going to be on Kickstarter. And some other stuff. And I'm trying to do it where it might go through like PayPal. So if you do, like a pledge level that's for a specific thing, that you don't have to wait till the end of it, that you'll actually receive it like ASAP. So I'm trying to work on that kind of stuff. Anyway, so I am going to review Block by Block 2nd edition, which is designed by T.L. Simmons, I believe it is. I think it might be Simons, actually, because it's only one M. It is launching on Kickstarter tomorrow. The game is for 2 to 4 players, ages 14 and up, and plays in about 2 to 3 hours. I do have to point out that the artwork that I am sharing here is supposed to be embargoed until tomorrow. But it's impossible for me to go and sit there and completely edit this stream, this video after the fact, to swap out one piece of artwork. So I am breaking Tim's rule that he asked not to release the artwork until tomorrow when the Kickstarter goes live, just simply because I don't want somebody to check out this video and then they see the wrong artwork. I will show you the other artwork in just a second and think that, oh, this isn't the Kickstarter edition that I'm talking about, because it is. All right. Anyway, I do not have a pledge level either to receive the game just yet. So I'm going to switch over to the other camera here. So let's do that real quickly. Boom. There we go. So I've got the game set up, and I'm going to kind of run through the game a bit and kind of explain what's going on with the game, but I am not going to actually do a complete playthrough of this game. So I do want to point out that where my mug is right now, I am blocking out a little bit of the police morale track up here. And I'll kind of pull this this down just a little bit. No, I actually have cards and stuff. All right, so I've got the police morale is like over here. Is where it says police morale, and then it shows the different levels of police morale. There's also a block that's being blocked off by my mug, but it's not that big a deal at the moment. So because, once again, space is at a premium, as always, with showing off the game. So I've got everything pretty much kind of combined in pretty close. I'm going to move this box off to the side here because I've got some other items over here as well. So, as I had mentioned, the artwork, this is the artwork that is on the rule book right now, because the box I received, see, this is an advanced copy I've got. So some of this stuff is prototype, like these tiles for the blocks. I can obviously tell those are prototype, but came in a big black box. Although it's kind of cool, it's got this little metal saying, "Oh, hey, this is the second edition advanced copy." All right, which I have to send back. All right, so anyway, so that is the rule book here. The rule book, and I have to point out too, whoops, as I got too close here, bumped the table. The camera's way up there, right? Camera's way up here again. In fact, I'm pointing to it and my hand is out of the shot for my little side shot here. So I'm gonna kind of hold the rules up here. Rules are not real long. Rules are nicely put together. Kind of talks about creating the city, the overview of gameplay. And the whole premise of Block by Block, second edition, is it's a game of insurrection. So it's for 2 to 4 players. Each of the players are going to lead a faction against the oppressive government that rules this city. So you only have a certain amount of time to be able to liberate the city. And of course, there are police that you have to deal with. So just going through a little bit here through the rules. So it's talking about the different actions you have available, different occupations you can set up. The game is broken into nighttime and then sunrise. So at night, the different factions are at work, and then as the sun comes up, that's when the police start fighting back. So here we go, sunrise. So all in all, we're looking at what, 16 pages of rules. Then it talks about some information on the back as well. So I'm going to kind of talk about some of the different components of the game. So as I mentioned, each of the players is going to represent a faction. So we've got the different factions here, and each of the players are going to get one of these, and it can be randomly selected, or people can pick. It's okay. Now, each of these factions will have their own special ability that they're able to perform. So we have the prisoners, and the prisoners are better at fighting against the police because they've been in prison. So then we got the students, and the students get to move around the board much easier than the other factions. Then we got the neighbors, and the neighbors are good at building barricades, which help keep the police out of the various different blocks. And then we've got the workers, and they actually make the difficulty level of the different blocks that you're trying to do certain actions in easier. And each of the factions has little different artwork. And one thing I pointed out is that one of the gang, when we started playing, they said, when I was telling them, okay, so this is what the game is about, you're fighting the police and things like that. They're like, don't really care for that idea. I treat the police with respect and so on and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, of course. So do I. So does everybody sitting at this table. The assumption was that, it's supposed to be an American city and you're fighting American police. There's no indication in this game that, if you look at these these characters are little block people. So these little block people don't represent anything. You know, you got purple, you got green. So they're just little block characters. So kind of abstract. Plus, you know, it kind of lightens up the whole premise of the game as well. Then on the back of each of those is a really nicely presented player aid that's going to tell you everything that's going on in the game. What you can do during the nighttime, what happens during the sunrise, how many dice you're going to roll for your actions, the different actions available to you, everything. It's all marked right here. So I like that a lot because once you kind of get a hang of how the game plays, you never really have to go back to the rule book. You really don't. So each of the players is going to get a faction. So you got 4 different factions there. Whoops. And then each of the players will also have an agenda. And you will secretly receive an agenda. Now, you can play the game in a couple different ways. So you can play it as a fully cooperative experience. You can also play it where each faction is kind of trying to do their own thing, although everybody's looking to try to win. Everybody's looking to defeat the oppressive government. There are a couple of agendas here that are actually more towards somebody needing to win by themselves to be able to pull off the win. So you can take these 2 out. So we've got the Nihilist and the Vanguardist cards. You can take those out of the deck for the agenda, and then you can simply assign each player one of these agendas. So for an example, one of the agendas might they're all going to now say win together. So it says social. So it says win together. You must have occupations in all of your factions' districts, and at least 4 shopping centers must be burned. It says your faction is in solidarity with all other social factions. So that's an example of one of the agendas. So each of the players is going to get one of these agenda cards, and they're going to keep it hidden. Going to keep it hidden. You don't necessarily have to keep it completely hidden, but because you're all actually trying to work together, right? Because you're looking at if you're playing fully cooperative. So I don't see a reason why you have to keep it hidden, but you can. So each of the players is going to get their agenda cards, and I can move those off to the side now because I really don't need those anymore. So anyway, then you're gonna lay out. Well, you could start off by doing this. You can lay out the city, and the city is always randomly generated. So up here, as I mentioned on this board, you've got the police morale, and the police morale goes from timid to deadly. And these numbers, it's getting chopped off a little bit. The numbers are indicating how many police operations cards you're going to draw at the end of your turn. At the end of each player's turn, they're going to draw so many cards. And timid would be 1. Alert, bold, and brutal become 2 cards. And then deadly, which is the highest, is 3 cards. Then we got this staging area. You probably see I've got some cubes here. These white cubes just represent police, riot police, basically. Then you'll see we've got these like vehicle wooden tokens here. Those represent riot vans. So you're going to randomly generate this city. So you've got this mat. It's fabric, but I'm curious if we might see one in the Kickstarter that's made out of like a mouse pad material. I think that would be very, very cool. But this is just a fabric, kind of fabric like mat you lay out. And I'm going to lift this up and lift this up. And you're going to see that if you look real close, right here is a letter. So this is the letter A. So it could be letter A, B, or C. And they're kind of scattered differently. And then each of these blocks are going to indicate a letter as well. So, and they're two-sided. There's this side, and then there's a liberated side. So it's going to show that, okay, so this is an A. So you separate these tiles by A, B, or C. You shuffle them all up, and you make sure that they're some of them are rotated different ways. And then however you reveal them is how you're going to place these. So for an example, you're going to have these manifestation cards that go underneath each of the blocks, except for highways. We've got these highway blocks, and the highways, you don't stop on them, so you can't liberate those blocks. So you don't need to put a manifestation card underneath. But all the other blocks you will. So what you can do is, yes, it makes it a lot easier if you just shuffle the manifestation cards and then deal one to each of these locations, one of these areas, and then deal out the tiles for the city, the A, B, and C tiles. But I'm just pointing out, you're never going to reveal the manifestation cards under the highways because you do not actually get the highways. You don't liberate highways. All right, so anyway, moving right along. So along this side of this mat, we have a countdown. So we count down, and I've got to cut off a little bit down here. We got game over. So underneath the 1 is another circle, and it's game over. So you only have so much time to liberate this city, to overthrow this oppressive government and their police force, which is basically cracking heads. So it's kind of interesting too, because it doesn't just move every turn, just one. Sometimes, depending on the police morale, the police are really hyped up, it's going to move more than one. You're going to move 2. But then again, things can happen with the factions. The factions do things, and this won't move. The countdown doesn't move. You've actually bought more time. So you've got that running down the side there. We also have a first player token. So, and it's kind of funny. I thought this was a little weird. It's like the starting first player is the person who's had the most recent bad experience with the police. Kind of like, if you're playing a game with some people you don't know all that well, I don't know, do you want to really reveal that? So it's kind of like, nah, whoever rolls the highest on 2 dice. I think that works just as well. All right, so anyway, moving right along, each of the players are going to have some cubes, and these are considered blocks. These are blocks of resistance. This is the resistance for the green, for the neighbors. Then you also will have occupation tokens. So you're going to have 2 social center. Whoops, I almost popped right on my hand. These are social center occupations. And these, these are let me double check. I forgot what they're called. This is where you get to recruit more people to the resistance, and this is where you actually can start collecting. You get free loot, but I forget. One of them's called the social center, and the other one is that was it. So that's the social center. This is the assembly hall. So as I was pointing out, this helps you get more resistance blocks, and this allows you to get free loot. So each of the players will have that as well. Then we've got these graffiti counters, and it's kind of cool. There's a bunch of these, and they all have different graffiti on them. And then if you flip them over, it's flames. It shows flames. So if we take a look at some of these blocks, there's not a ton of different things on them, but there are a few things you're going to take a look at. So you're going to see here, that's considered a shopping center. So that's where your factions can loot, because there are loot cards that will help your factions, and you can loot a shopping center twice. So, and remember, these are all kind of turned around different ways. So you always want to make sure that you keep the same orientation of these blocks when you do different things. So for an example, so if that got looted once, you would just place the token for the graffiti. If it gets looted twice, it's burnt down. It's burnt down. It's destroyed. And some of the agendas do require your faction to destroy shopping centers. So that's important to keep in mind, because those are your victory conditions. Your victory conditions. And to win the game, you must have two factions. So for an example, if you got 4 players playing, you have to have 2 factions that both have revealed their agendas and have completed their agendas for you to win. Okay, so we've got that. Then we've also got these highways. As I mentioned before, the highways, you can't liberate these, and it even says no stopping. So the highways are actually the only way throughout different areas of the city for you to move diagonally, because otherwise you have to move by the way these streets all line up. So you've got that. Then I'll take this from the tile that's kind of hidden. So then we've got this symbol here, the M. That's a metro. That's like a subway system, or like the L in Chicago, right? So it's a subway or elevated train, what have you. It's public transportation that allows the players to maneuver around the city. Right, then we've got loot cards, as I pointed out. Got all these different loot cards. So when you loot a shopping center, you're going to be able to get some loot. It's going to tell you, okay, what did you get? What is it good for? How does it help you out? We also have barricades. Barricades are built to keep the police at bay and the riot vans at bay. So these are barricades. You gotta get quite a lot of those. And then I believe, looks like that should be it as far as kind of showing off close up on these different tiles. You'll see that there are circles on some of the tiles and the various different colors. So as I pointed out, and the colors correspond with the different factions. So green is the neighbors, orange is the prisoners, the yellow are the workers, and then the purple are the students. So those are the various, pretty sure, right? Yep. So you'll see that I've got these discs already placed on one of these for each of the factions. So if you look around the board, and unfortunately, these are getting cut off a little bit. They're getting cut off just at the bottom. The players will set up, and they're going to get, this is their starting location. So you're going to choose one of their districts, one of these blocks or one of these districts to start off with. That is their starting location, and they're going to get 1 block. They're going to get 1 block of resistance. Now, at the beginning of each turn, the players, each faction is going to get another block of resistance. Now, there are other ways for you to earn more blocks too, but got to keep in mind, you are limited to how many you will have. So you're limited to that many, just as you're limited to the number of occupations you've got. You've got the 2 assembly centers, and then you got the 2 social centers that you can build. Now, you can only build in your locations. You cannot build one of these on other factions locations. You can build them on public. So for an example, this is public. These gray circles, it's just general public area. You can build occupations there, and you can also build occupations in a white circle, which is state run. And each of these districts is going to show you who really kind of like owns it. Who's it like geared towards? So you'll see orange will tell you, okay, so this is prisoners, and it says it's the Supermax prison. So obviously enough, right? Overcrowded jail, showing the prisoners. Purple is the students, bankrupt junior college, underfunded high school, privatized university. So the whole thing is the players are looking to, the factions are all looking to be able to have built their occupations on their districts. Now, that doesn't mean they're only going to build them there. There can be other locations that they build these occupations, because these will give you this special bonus every turn. It's just you can't, I could not go as the neighbors and build an occupation on a Supermax prison. I couldn't do it. Now, there are ways for you to actually swap out occupations. So for an example, if you have an occupation in a public area or a state area, that you could swap out with another player and let them take that as an occupied area and you get yours back. So anyway, all right. So I mentioned we've got the manifestation cards, which come into play when a district gets liberated, and there are a few different things that come into play before a district can be liberated. And with that, we get a little more color, a little burst of color. Yay! But it is not liberated just yet. So let's put that right there. So essentially what will happen in the game is each of the players are going to perform actions in order to build up the resistance, in order to build these occupations and battle the police. They're not going to battle the police a lot because the police are pretty tough. It's pretty tough to take the police out. But you have to play pretty cleverly to be able to liberate the city in the amount of time that you've got. So what will happen is, and as I mentioned before, you got this handy dandy little player aid right here. And let me grab a sip. There are also police operation cards, but we'll look at those in just a sec. So kind of give you an idea, all right? So let's say, okay, I've got the green over here. Let me grab my, get green. Oh, here we go, right there. Right, so I've got the neighbors, right? So depending on how many blocks you control, and in your control, you control a district or block. I know it's kind of funny because I keep saying blocks when actually these are blocks. They're considered blocks of resistance. And if you look at the artwork, these guys are little blocks. So it's like these blocks are taking over blocks of blocks. Shouldn't it be block by block? Just kidding. All right. So anyway, depending on the number of districts that you control will determine how many dice you're going to roll. So we've got these smaller dice here. So these are your action dice. These are going to represent how many actions you're going to be able to perform. So let's say, for an example, I'm playing as the neighbors. And my neighbors, I'm going to start off my turn. It's going to tell you exactly what you're going to do. So you're going to start off, you're going to get a block, and it's got to go in your location that's kind of your headquarters. It's kind of your headquarters. You're going to get that. Now, one of the things you got to make sure you do when you're setting up is you're going to try to, each of the factions are going to set these up as far away from the police as they possibly can get. So these state areas are where these state districts are where the police begin the game. So you kind of, like for an example, well, you didn't want to be there, you're right next to the police, and they can go right down the street and get to you. Something else you want to keep an eye on is each of these districts is going to have a number right dead center, and it's going to be anywhere from 3 to 6. And that's going to tell you what is the difficulty of performing an advanced action in that district, in that area. So, all right, so now we've got 2 blocks, right? We've got 2 blocks of resistance here because I just got the new one. Now, I'm going to roll my dice. Yeah, let's roll them on here. So I've got a 1, a 3, and a 6. So you're able to assign these action dice. So you're going to know what's going on ahead of time as far as performing your actions. So what I could be doing is I could say, okay, these 2 guys here, these 2 little cubes here, they represent a mob. And you can use one of your action dice of any value to move these guys as a mob anywhere that you can connect to. So there isn't like a movement allowance, right? It's not like, oh, well, these guys only get to move 2 districts or 3 districts. No, if I can trace a line and I can use metro stations, I want to say metro station, yeah. Sure, in Illinois, in the Chicago area, yeah, we do have metro stations. I can connect however I want, and I can move all around this city. So I could choose to just move 1. I could choose to move just 1 of these resistance to another location. Like, say, I could go to the projects. I could head to the projects and be like, okay, so I'm heading there. That's where I'm going to. That's one of my actions. So I would have spent that die. Now, of course, I could have sent both together as a mob. Now, one thing I couldn't do is I couldn't use 1 die to move down to the projects and then 1 to the polluted slum. I can only move together as a mob as many as I want if they're all going to the same place. And as you can see, I can very easily move on down the street because I'm going straight down this road to go to the projects. Movement is not a free, it's a basic action. It's not an action that requires a lot of rolling a die to see if you defeat either equal or higher than the numbers here. Don't have to worry about that. It's not like an opposed action, an advanced action. The other thing I could do is I could spend an action and I could build a barricade. And the barricades actually go between the blocks. So I can build barricades like around, like so, which will stop, 1 barricade will stop 1 riot cop, 1 riot police cube from moving in. You can also, and each one of these is going to cost you an action. You could also use it to build 2 barricades, like so, which will stop half the riot police who are trying to move across this street here, right? Or you can even build 3 barricades. Now, keep in mind, that would take 3 actions to do it, but it would stop all the police from being able to move into here on a turn. So once the riot police try to get into a place and there's barricades there, the barricades stop whatever riot cops are coming, but those barricades are lost. So the barricades are also a free action that you can perform as well. Now, what you can do in advanced actions is you could loot. So for an example, I've spent the 1, let's say I spend the 1 to move my guy down to the projects, right? So he goes down to the projects, and unfortunately you can't really see it, so let me move this over here. So this tile is down here. So anyway, so I move them to the projects. That was my one. That was my die there. Let's say for an example, okay, I'm going to put a barricade up here to maybe slow down the riot cops, when depending on what the riot cops are going to end up doing. And then I decided I am going to try to loot this shopping center in the projects. So I used my 3 to build the barricade. Now remember, I know what I've got. I've got this 6. I know I can do stuff with this 6. So if I wanted to, I could spend, let's do that. Let me put this back down here. I'm going to spend my 6 and I'm going to loot that shopping center. And I get to draw a loot card. I get Molotov cocktails. Use when taking an attack action to increase the value of the action die by 1. I use it during my turn. So I get this. I get to keep this. This is loot. So if I ever have my my blocks attacking police or a riot van, I can use this. That's all it's really good for, is when I'm attacking the police. So that'd be cool. So that'd be my loot. I've gone and I've looted this this shopping center. I keep saying, I want to say it's like a grocery store, but it's supposed to be a shopping center. And we've built this barricade. Now, because I did this advanced action and I'm looting, I have to roll a 6-sided die. So on a 1, the police, and I take it from the staging area, the police will send a cop, right? So they'll send police. On a 2, I have to take a police operations card and resolve it. 3, 4, 5, nothing happens. All right, I get away with it, scot-free, nothing happens. And then on a 6, I could actually spend any loot card that I may have to roll a new action die. So effectively, on a 6, I can actually do another action. Granted, it's going to cost me a loot card, and there's no guarantee it's going to be a good die roll, right? So, but it would just give me another action. So each of the players are going to take their turns, and they're going to start spreading out. They're going to start trying to get more resistance and try to take over these different blocks. So right now, I would effectively have 2 blocks that I control. Now, one thing to point out, that if, say for an example, I get the students, there's two students get in there, then I'm not considered to control this district anymore, this zone. I don't control it anymore. So, and you can only build occupations and stuff like that in zones you control. Now, the whole point of that is, if you're like playing where you're like the vanguardist or the nihilist, yeah. But keep in mind that all the players are normally working together. So you can't have more resistance blocks in the areas. You're all kind of working together to be able to do this. It's just usually you're sending your folks out into your areas to build your areas of occupation. So anyway, so another thing that you'll be able to do is you'll be able to liberate these areas, and I'll get to that in just a minute. But let's say, for an example, everybody did their turns, and now what you end up doing is, after, like, okay, say for an example, I did my turn with the neighbors, right? So the police morale right now is a 1. Now, police operations can raise the morale of the police. The police morale can be dropped anytime you defeat the police by your resistance guys. So I'll give you an example how you could fight. Let's say if I had Let's say as an example, let's do this as an example. Let's pull this projects one back up. Let's say that there was one unit from the riot police that were in the projects, and I had my 3 dice. Let's say I've got a 3, 4, 6, right? So I'd spend a 3. I could move my guy in here, and I can fight the police. I can attack the police with an action die, but the action must be equal to or higher than the number in the center. Okay, so as an example, let's say if I wanted to spend a 4 and I had those Molotov cocktails, right? I could do that. I could actually defeat the police, so they would go back into the staging area. And then from here, we would see their morale go down. And because it gets to the point, if you start pulling out all these police operations cards, it's going to be super tough. So you got to try to keep that police morale down. Now, the problem is, if the riot police end up, say for an example, the police move in their turn, then they'll beat my guys up. They'll take them out of action. So there's no dice rolling, anything like that. The police will automatically take 1 for 1 out. And the police don't, it's not like, oh, well, I'm able to take him out like as a counterattack. No, it's just boom, I'm gone. So it's very important for you to do everything you can to make sure that your guys, your resistance is not hanging around when the police show up. Okay, so anyway, so let's say I had finished up that turn. With the police morale as timid, I would take 1 police operations card and flip it. And it says heavy reinforcements, +1 police morale, all riot vans deploy 2 riot cops. Wow, that is bad. That is. So I should point out that there are like different ways to make the game a little easier, because this game can be pretty hard. And one of them is to only have like 1 of this card in the deck. So yeah, that's kind of funny. 1 right off the bat. So what we would do here is all of a sudden, these districts get 2 new police because these are the vans. These are the riot vans. Just like so. All right, so now it'd be like, wow, crap. So what'll happen is we'll have, let's say somebody else takes their turn, we get another police ops. And see, we'll see riot cop movement. And it'll say all groups of riot cops advance into adjacent worker districts. Riot cops in districts with occupations hold their position. So for an example, we would see here, if we had played that, and sometimes you'll have, they may have an option to they could have been going in at one or another. There's numbers on each of these districts too. So it's kind of like, oh, okay, so the riot police will go to another area as opposed to another. There's no, you got to roll a die to see who they're going after. So for an example here with that card, there's only 1 group of riot police that could move into an adjacent worker locale. So it'd be here. They would move into here. And when riot police move, they always leave 1 police officer, one unit behind. So for an example, now we'd be like, uh-oh, because we've got the workers are actually down in this garment sweatshop. That's like their headquarters. So yeah, so that's basically how like the police would move around. So for an example, let's say we had the police here, and now remember, they're always going to leave 1 riot, 1 riot cop unit behind. So if you're sitting there and say, for an example, it was like this, we got the van and the one, and it said, all police move into adjacent prisoner zones. Well, all that would happen there is, okay, so the van would move to this location here. This riot police, he would have to remain. They stay behind. When police attack in a district, in a zone, the police attack the blocks first, occupations second. So sometimes if you got the police coming, if you see the police on the horizon, it's a good idea to try to like pick off some of these individual riot cops. As far as these riot vans, the riot vans are tough to take out. So whereas you would have a 1-for-1, let's say I did my attack and I was able, took them out, was able to take these guys out. The riot van actually takes 3 hits to destroy. So the first hit, you would stand it up. Second hit, you're gonna flip it upside down. Third hit, you're gonna remove it. And the thing that also happens is in the police turn, in the sunrise turn, the police all get to repair their vans 1 step. So for an example, this is a step away from being destroyed. It would actually be repaired 1 step. The police, when they're removed, they go back to their staging area. For when your resistance, for each faction, your blocks of resistance are knocked out, they return back to your common bank, like so. So, I started to talk about how you can actually also be able to liberate these different areas. So, for an example, let's use, do I have one under here? Yep. Actually can't liberate that one. Let's move this. Let's do this like that. Okay. So, in order to liberate a location, you need to have twice as many blocks as the number in the center. Okay, so to liberate the smartphone factory, we would need to have 10 blocks on here. Now, they can be anybody's. They can be anybody's faction. So this is, like I said before, this is where you're trying to work together with the various other players, with the factions. So it'd be, maybe if you got 4 players, be like, okay, well, if we can send like 2 of yours and I'll have 4 of mine, and then we get 2 from each of the other guys, we're all here, we get to liberate this location. So what you would do is you would flip this over, and once again, you have to make sure that you keep the orientation correct. So it'd be like that. Liberated locations, if they have shopping centers, the shopping centers disappear, so they can no longer be looted or burned, because you wouldn't be looting or burning a store or a group of stores in an area that you're all like, yay, hooray, you're our heroes. Yeah, okay, well, let me burn this place down now. Then you're going to get this manifestation card. You're going to flip it over, and you're going to resolve this manifestation card. And it's always something good for the factions. And it could be stuff where they get to find out, they get to look at the next, like, let's say 3 police op cards. And it's like, okay, well, now I know exactly what the police are going to be doing, and I can plan accordingly. I can try to get out of the way, or get ready to move in. Like maybe the police move out of a state location and leave that wide open for you to go in and take over. So a lot of stuff going on. I like the way that the police ops cards work. They're pretty cool with a little bit of the artificial intelligence going on for how they maneuver around. Because sometimes you'll see, especially when the morale goes up, you'll see the police just just spreading all over the place, and just knocking out all these resistance and taking out the occupations. Now, the players win if, as I mentioned before, any two of the factions are able to successfully complete their agendas, and they've revealed their agendas. Now, the thing is, you're not going to win as soon as that takes place. So let's say, for an example, we got the purple reveals their agenda, and then orange player reveals okay, I've completed my agenda. Now you're going to finish up the turn, and then you're going to go into the sunrise phase. And after that sunrise phase, if those are still in effect, if the police have not been able to change this, then the players win. That is the way the players win. The players lose if any faction is completely removed from the game, so they have no blocks left, their headquarters is gone, or if the counter goes all the way down to the game over. So, for an example, once everybody has played out their turn, move to that, then we got the sunrise. That's when the police get to do their things. That's when we get to see if we've liberated a block or district, what have you. If we're able to perform actions that stop this from moving, that's pretty cool. So I like the game. The gang liked it a lot. It's a little abstract for some of them, but once they kind of gotten the hang of it and realized that, hey, we're all supposed to be working together to defeat the oppressive government that's running the show here, then everybody, it kind of clicked. It's not a difficult game to learn. It takes a little bit of time to kind of start to assemble kind of a strategy for how to go about taking out, because I'll give you an example. One of the players was like always trying to like go fight the police, which it's good when you do that and you attack and you're able to defeat the police and then push their morale down a little bit. But problem was they started going like to areas that had a lot of police, and they would only be able to like knock off like one or two. And then of course they're like up here, right? We've got like five. We got five riot police plus the riot van. And it was like everybody you'd send would all get wiped out. And it was kind of like, well, you're only going to get one of those back at the beginning of your turn. You don't have anything else built up yet. So, like I said, it took a little bit of time for some of the players to figure things out. But everybody liked it. Everybody dug it. So, what are my final thoughts as far as with Block by Block? I like the second edition. Second edition feels a little meatier to me, gameplay-wise, than the first edition. But it's been a long time since I played the first edition of Block by Block. I like the kind of matte. That's why I mentioned I'm hoping that maybe it'll be available in some sort of like mouse pad material, because I think that would be very, very cool, as opposed to just being, it's almost like the material you would make like a bandana out of, or like like almost like a neckerchief or whatever. It's kind of the material on it. I would think it'll hold up pretty well, but still, it's it's kind of like printed on fabric, and it's white on black, kind of off a little bit. Anyway, it's not a big deal. I mean, I like how it's got it laid out. So you have each of the locations where you can put your manifestation card and then put the district down, as opposed to, okay, just do a 5x5 grid and have it all like all over the place. Because when you're laying down those barricades, you want to have like a little space between each of these, districts, these zones. So I like that. The components and stuff like that, this is a preview copy. So the components that are included are really nice. Granted, Like these tiles are obviously just stickers placed on tiles, so they don't necessarily line up completely. But once again, this is just a prototype for me to be able to play it and talk about it. So I'm sure components are going to be really nice. I enjoy the game. I like the first block by block. I think this does a nice job of kind of just making it a little bit meatier. I can't say that if you have the original block by block, this is a must-have, because I don't think the game has changed tremendously. A little bit, but like I said, I don't recall every aspect of the first edition of block by block. So I dig the fact that it's kind of abstract. I like the fact where you're constantly kind of looking at, okay, so do I get more loot to try to make me more powerful? Do I try to spend my really good action dice on setting up my special objectives, my little areas of occupation? Am I gonna try to fight the police? Am I gonna try to avoid the police? Lots of cool stuff. Are we gathering? Are we gonna try to get together so we can liberate some of these blocks and actually boost up all of the factions, or get special stuff for all the factions together? I dig that a lot. Like I said, took a little bit of time for some of the other gang to kind of get the whole, yes, we're all cooperating here, even though you're kind of doing your own thing. Just like there's sometimes where you've got one player has completed their objective, their agenda, they've got it done, and the other players are trying to help them make sure that they don't lose that. So that's pretty cool how, you got to kind of cover for other players too. So I like that. I like that back and forth. And I do like the fact that, there's a limited amount of time and there's different ways for the players to lose. Players don't just lose if time runs out. Players lose if one of the factions gets knocked out, because you're not going to be able to win. So all in all, really like the second edition. Like I said before, I don't know what the pledge level to get the standard edition of the game might be when this launches tomorrow. But on a numerical scale, I give Block by Block second edition an 8.5. It's a really solid game. It's not difficult to learn. It's not super difficult to master. It doesn't have a lot of hiccups or anything like that. It plays really nicely. I like the AI for the riot police. I think that's pretty cool. And it's pretty challenging. It can be pretty tough right out the box. I will say I do ding it a little bit. I don't think it plays as well as a two-player game. It's okay. I think it plays a lot better as a four-player game. If you can get a full complement of 4 players, I think that is really, really nice. 3 we did not play with. I did not play with 3 players. I would assume it should be all right. It should still play pretty well. 2 just seemed a little tough. You might have to play around with the difficulty level for a 2-player game. All right, so that is it for today's show. Once again, as long as I don't get an email telling me that it's been embargoed, I will be digging into Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes on tomorrow's show. So be sure to tune in for that. If something changes, I will obviously tweet what's on the show instead. If I do get word back saying, hey, whoa, that's embargoed until like the 18th, then I will do an unboxing of Renegade from Victory Point Games. All right, so when you're not watching The Daily Dope, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Hopefully your week is off and running and you enjoy the rest of your Monday. I'll be back tomorrow, and as always, thanks so much for watching. Thanks again for watching The Daily Dope, presented by The Gaming Gang. If you like this episode, be sure to give it a quick thumbs up. And if you dig the channel, please subscribe. If you'd like to check out our previous episode, click right here. And if you want to check out a somewhat randomly selected episode, give a click right down here. It'll be like opening a box of Cracker Jacks. You just don't know what you'll get. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'm Jeff Mack.